Stop for a second and think about this with me. If squats are supposed to make your legs stronger, why do so many people over 60 start feeling knee pain after doing them? Seriously, I want you to picture this. You wake up in the morning. You tell yourself, I'm going to take care of my health. You watch a video or read an article that says squats are the best exercise for leg strength. So you stand up, bend your knees, and start doing them every day. A week later, your knees feel tight. 2 weeks later, they feel sore. A month later, you start avoiding stairs. Now let me ask you the real question. Did squats damage your knees, or were you unknowingly doing them in a way your body after 60 simply cannot handle anymore? Because here is something almost nobody explains clearly. After 60, your joints move differently. Your hips become tighter. Your balance reactions slow down. The small stabilizing muscles around your knees become weaker. So when you do squats exactly the way you did 30 or 40, the pressure often goes straight into the knee joint instead of being shared by the hips and thighs. And that is when people say something like this: I tried exercising, and it made my knees worse. But the truth is the exercise was never the real problem. The hidden mistakes inside the movement were: I spent decades in emergency medicine seeing what happens when leg strength disappears. Falls, fractures, months of recovery. Strong legs are one of the most important protections we have as we age, but they must be trained the right way for an aging body. In this video, we will reveal 5 squat mistakes people over 60 make without realizing it, ranked from least harmful to most dangerous. And number 2 is the mistake that quietly destroys knee comfort, even though fixing it takes only a small adjustment. Before we start, I want to ask you something. How old are you right now? Tell me in the comments. I read them personally and reply whenever I can. Now, let's start with mistake number 5, the one almost everyone does without even noticing. Mistake number 5, squatting too fast and losing control of the movement. This is the mistake I see everywhere, and it is the one that most people do not even realize they are making. You step up, you drop down into your squat quickly, you bounce at the bottom, and you pop right back up. It feels efficient, it feels strong. But if you are over 60, that speed is one of the worst things you can do to your body. And here is why. As we age, our tendons and ligaments lose elasticity. The study published in the Journal of Biomechanics in 2021 found that tendon stiffness increases by approximately 30% between the ages of 40 and 65. That means the connective tissue around your knees and hips is significantly less forgiving than it used to be. When you squat quickly, you are relying on that elasticity to absorb the impact at the bottom of the movement. But when that elasticity is gone, all of that force goes straight into the joint itself. Think of it like a rubber band. A fresh rubber band stretches and snaps back easily. But an old rubber band that has been sitting in a drawer for years is stiff and brittle. If you stretch it too fast, it does not bounce back. It snaps. Your tendons are not going to snap from one fast squat, but the cumulative damage from hundreds of fast repetitions over weeks and months is what leads to chronic inflammation and pain. So what should you do instead? You need to slow everything down. Researchers at the University of Queensland found that performing squats with a 3-second lowering phase and a 2-second rising phase increased muscle activation in the quadriceps by 27% compared to fast squats. That means you are actually building more muscle by going slower. You are getting a better workout while simultaneously protecting your joints. The key is to think of the squat as 2 separate movements, the lowering phase and the rising phase. On the way down, take a full 3 seconds. Count it out in your head: 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. At the bottom, pause for just a beat. Do not bounce. Then push back up over 2 seconds with steady, controlled effort. You should feel your muscles doing the work the entire time. If you feel like you are falling into the squat or using momentum to stand back up, you are going too fast. This slower tempo also has a huge benefit for your balance. A 2020 study in the journal Age and Aging found that slow tempo resistance exercises improved balance scores by 34% in adults over 65 over a 12-week period. Since falls are one of the leading causes of serious injury in older adults, this alone makes the switch to slow squats worth it. Start with just your body weight if you need to. There is absolutely no shame in that. The goal is control, not speed. Master the slow tempo first, and then you can gradually add resistance over time. Now that you know why speed is secretly sabotaging your squats, let us talk about a mistake that is even more common and even more damaging to your knees. But before we move forward, give this video a like and subscribe. What's ahead could change everything for your health. Mistake number 4, going too deep without the mobility to support it. You have probably heard the phrase deep squats are better squats about 1,000 times. And for a healthy 25-year-old with full hip and ankle mobility, that can be true. But for most adults over 60, trying to squat as deep as possible is like trying to force a rusty hinge to open all the way. You are not improving the movement. You are just grinding metal against metal. A 2019 study published in the journal Knee Surgery, Sports Traumatology, Arthroscopy found that compressive forces on the knee joint increase exponentially once the knee bends past 90 degrees. For adults with any degree of age-related cartilage thinning, which is virtually everyone over 60 based on MRI data, going past that 90-degree mark puts enormous pressure on tissue that is already compromised. The researchers found that deep squats increase patellofemoral joint stress by up to 76% compared to parallel or quarter squats. That is almost double the stress on the front of your knee just from going a few inches deeper. Now, I am not saying you should never work toward a deeper squat. Mobility is important and maintaining range of motion is a valid goal, but you have to earn the depth before you use it under load. What most people do is load up weight and then force themselves into a deep position that their hips, ankles, and knees simply cannot support. The solution is something researchers call the box squat method, and it is incredibly effective for people over 60. You place a chair or a sturdy box behind you that stops your descent right at about 90 degrees of knee bend. That is roughly the point where your thighs are parallel to the floor or even slightly above parallel. You squat down until you lightly touch the box, pause for 1 second, and then stand back up. A study from the National Strength and Conditioning Association found that box squats reduce shearing forces on the knee by up to 42% compared to free squats to the same depth. The box gives you a consistent target so you never accidentally drop too low, and that momentary pause eliminates the bounce at the bottom that we talked about in mistake number 5. Here is the key to getting the most out of this. Set your box height so that when you sit on it, your thigh bone is parallel to the ground or just slightly above. If you feel any pinching in your hips or sharp pressure in your knees at that depth, raise the box an inch or two. There is no rule that says you have to hit parallel. Your body is your guide. Over time, as your mobility improves, you can gradually lower the box height. But only do this if you can reach the new depth without any compensations in your form. If your lower back starts to round, if your heels come off the ground, or if your knees cave inward, you have gone too deep and you need to come back up. Work within the range your body allows today, not the range you had 20 years ago. Patience with depth is what separates the people who are still squatting strong at 75 from the people who had to stop at 62 because of chronic knee pain. This next mistake might surprise you because it has nothing to do with your legs at all, but it could be the reason your back hurts every time you squat. Mistake number 3, neglecting your core and letting your torso collapse forward. Here is something that most squat tutorials completely ignore for the over 60 population. Your core is the foundation of every single squat you perform, and if that foundation is weak, everything above and below it falls apart. When your core is not engaged properly during a squat, your torso tilts forward, your lower back rounds, and suddenly your spine is absorbing forces that should be going through your legs. A 2021 study in the European Spine Journal found that adults over 60 with weak core activation during squats experienced up to 58% more compressive loading on the lumbar spine compared to those who maintained proper core bracing. 58% more force on your lower back just because your abdominal muscles were not doing their job. And here's the thing most people do not realize. Core strength naturally declines as we age. Research published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity showed that adults lose approximately 15% of their core muscle mass per decade after the age of 50. So by the time you are in your 60s, Your core is significantly weaker than it was in your 40s, even if you feel fine. The fix for this is something called the bracing technique, and it is the single most important thing you can learn before you ever do another squat. Before you begin your descent, take a deep breath into your belly, not your chest. Imagine you are about to get punched in the stomach. Tighten your entire midsection like you are bracing for that impact. Hold that tension through the entire squat, both on the way down and on the way up. Exhale only at the top when you are fully standing. This bracing creates what exercise scientists call intra-abdominal pressure. It is like inflating a balloon inside your torso that supports your spine from the inside out. A study from the Spine Biomechanics Laboratory at the University of Waterloo found that proper core bracing reduced spinal compression forces by up to 40% during loaded squats. That is a massive reduction in stress on your back from something that takes zero extra equipment and about 5 seconds to do. To really maximize this, I recommend adding dedicated core work to your routine at least twice a week. But I am not talking about sit-ups or crunches. Those actually put more stress on your spine. Instead, focus on planks and dead bugs. A 2020 systematic review in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that plank variations activated the deep core stabilizers 62% more effectively than traditional crunches. Start with a basic plank hold for 20 seconds and work up to 60 seconds over several weeks. For dead bugs, lie on your back with your arms pointing straight up and your knees bent at 90 degrees. Slowly extend one leg out while lowering the opposite arm overhead, keeping your lower back pressed firmly against the floor. Alternate sides for 10 repetitions each. These two exercises will dramatically improve your core stability during squats, and you will feel the difference within 2 to 3 weeks. The mistake we are about to cover next is one that affects almost every single person over 60, and ignoring it is one of the fastest ways to develop hip pain that never seems to go away. Mistake number 2, ignoring hip hinge mechanics and squatting straight down. This is the mistake that I wish someone had told me about years ago because it changes absolutely everything about how the squat feels. Most people think of a squat as a straight up and down movement. You stand up, you go down, you come back up. But a proper squat is actually a combination of two movements happening at the same time. You are bending at the knees and you are hinging at the hips. And for adults over 60, the hip hinge component is critical because it distributes the workload across your entire lower body instead of dumping everything onto your knees. The 2018 study published in the Journal of Athletic Training compared two groups of adults over 60 performing squats. One group was instructed to squat straight down as most people naturally do. The other group was coached to initiate the movement with a hip hinge, pushing their hips back as if sitting into a chair behind them. The hip hinge group showed 35% less stress on the anterior cruciate ligament and 29% more activation of the gluteal muscles. That means better muscle building with significantly less joint damage, just from changing the starting point of the movement. Here is how to do it correctly. Stand with your feet about shoulder width apart or slightly wider. Before you bend your knees at all, push your hips back behind you. Imagine there is a chair about 2 feet behind you and you are reaching back to sit in it. Your torso will naturally lean forward slightly, and that is perfectly fine as long as your core is braced and your back stays flat. As your hips push back, then allow your knees to bend and lower yourself down. Your weight should stay centered over the middle of your feet, or even slightly toward your heels. If you feel your weight shifting to your toes, you are not hinging enough at the hips. A useful cue that physical therapists often recommend is to think about showing your belt buckle to the wall in front of you on the way down. This keeps your chest up and your hips engaged properly. Another great cue is to place a light resistance band just above your knees. When you push your knees out against the band as you squat, it forces proper hip engagement and prevents the knees from collapsing inward, which is another common source of pain. The benefits of proper hip hinge mechanics go far beyond just a squat. A 2023 study in the journal Osteoarthritis and Cartilage found that adults over 60 who consistently practiced hip hinge movement patterns had 23% greater hip joint cartilage thickness compared to those who did not. The researchers suggested that the hip hinge loads the joint in a way that actually promotes cartilage health by encouraging fluid flow through the tissue. So not only does this technique reduce damage, it actively promotes healing and maintenance of the joint. Practice the hip hinge on its own before adding it to your squat. Stand in front of a wall with your back to it, about 12 inches away. Push your hips back until your glutes touch the wall. That is the motion. Do this 20 times a day for a week, and the movement pattern will become second nature. Then integrate it into your squats and feel the difference immediately. All right, now we have reached the most important mistake on this entire list, and what the research says about it is genuinely alarming. Mistake number 1, skipping the warm-up and squatting with cold, stiff joints. I know what you might be thinking. The warm-up? That is the biggest mistake? Yes. And the research backs this up so strongly that once you hear the numbers, you will never skip a warm-up again. A landmark study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine in 2021 analyzed over 3,000 adults between the ages of 60 and 80 who regularly performed resistance exercises, including squats. The adults who consistently performed a targeted warm-up before squatting had a 72% lower rate of acute joint injuries compared to those who went straight into their working sets. 72%. That is not a subtle difference. That is the difference between maintaining an active lifestyle and ending up in a physical therapy clinic wondering what went wrong. And the Harvard Medical School study I mentioned at the beginning of this video found that in adults over 60, synovial fluid, which is the natural lubricant inside your joints, takes approximately 8 to 12 minutes of gentle movement to reach optimal viscosity. In younger adults, this happens in about 2 to 3 minutes. So when you skip the warm-up, you are literally squatting on dry joints. Imagine running an engine without oil. The parts still move, but the friction is destroying them from the inside. Here is why this is especially critical after 60. Research from the Mayo Clinic published in 2020 showed that synovial fluid production decreases by approximately 20% per decade after age 50. So you already have less lubricant in your joints than you used to, and what you do have needs more time to get moving. On top of that, a study in the Journal of Gerontology found that muscle tissue in adults over 60 takes 40% longer to reach optimal temperature compared to adults in their 30s. Cold muscles are stiffer, less responsive, and significantly more prone to strains and micro tears. This combination of dry joints and cold muscles is the perfect recipe for injury, and it is the #1 reason people over 60 develop chronic squat-related pain. So here is exactly what your warm-up should look like, and it does not need to be complicated or time-consuming. Start with 5 minutes of low-impact cardiovascular movement. Walking briskly, cycling on a stationary bike, or marching in place all work perfectly. The goal is to raise your core body temperature and get blood flowing to your muscles and joints. A 2019 study in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine found that just 5 minutes of moderate cardio increased muscle temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius and improved joint range of motion by 18%. After the cardio, move into joint-specific mobility work for your ankles, hips, and knees. For your ankles, stand facing a wall with one foot about 4 inches from the base. Slowly push your knee forward toward the wall while keeping your heel on the ground. Hold for 5 seconds and repeat 10 times per side. For your hips, perform 10 slow hip circles in each direction, making the biggest circles you comfortably can. For your knees, stand with your feet together and your hands on your knees. Make 10 small gentle circles with your knees in each direction. This entire mobility sequence takes about 3 minutes. After the mobility work, perform 2 to 3 warm-up sets of squats with no weight at all. Focus on the slow tempo we discussed, the hip hinge pattern, the core bracing, and the appropriate depth. These practice sets serve 2 purposes. First, they allow your nervous system to rehearse the movement pattern before any load is applied. A study published in the journal Motor Control found that performing 2 to 3 practice sets improved neuromuscular coordination by 31% and reduced form breakdown under fatigue by 26%. Second, these warm-up sets give your joints those final few minutes of gentle movement needed to reach optimal synovial fluid distribution. Think of it as greasing the gears before you start the engine properly. The total warm-up takes about 10 to 12 minutes. That might sound like a lot, but compare it to the weeks or months of recovery that a joint injury would cost you. A 2022 study from the American Physical Therapy Association found that the average recovery time for a squat-related knee injury in adults over 60 was 14 weeks. 14 weeks of limited mobility, pain, and lost progress, all of which could have been prevented by spending 10 minutes warming up. I cannot stress this enough. The warm-up is not optional for adults over 60. It is the most important part of your entire squat routine. Make it non-negotiable. Write it into your workout plan. Set a timer if you have to. Your joints will thank you for it every single day. So there you have it. 5 squat mistakes that are silently doing damage to your body after 60, and more importantly, exactly how to fix every single one of them. Let us quickly recap what we covered. Number 5, squatting too fast and losing control. Slow it down to a 3-second descent and a 2-second rise. Number 4, going too deep without the mobility. Use a box squat and respect your current range of motion. Number 3, neglecting your core. Learn the bracing technique and add planks and dead bugs to your routine. Number 2, ignoring the hip hinge. Push your hips back first, then bend your knees. And number 1, the most critical of all, skipping the warm-up. Give your body 10 to 12 minutes of preparation before every squat session. These are not complicated changes. You do not need expensive equipment or a personal trainer to implement them, but the science is crystal clear. These 5 adjustments can mean the difference between building real strength that protects your body for decades to come and slowly grinding your joints into chronic pain. Start with just one change this week. Pick whichever mistake resonated with you the most and focus on correcting that one thing. Once it becomes second nature, add the next one. Within a few weeks, your squats will feel completely different, and your knees, hips, and back will feel better than they have in years. If you found this information helpful, please hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss another video. I put out new science-backed content every week specifically for adults over 60 who want to stay strong, mobile, and independent for life. And if you know someone who squats regularly and is over 60, do them a favor and share this video with them. It could save them from years of unnecessary pain. Thank you so much for watching.